Or he's got a bearded dragon that he keeps
Hey,
feeding.
what's up, everybody? Here's another episode of TwackTalk, where this week we are going to be discussing a band out of San Francisco, California, by the name of Faith No More. What's up, everybody? I am D.
I am Pump.
And I'm Ryan, and I'm just
actually
along
kind
for the
of
ride
pumped for
today.
this. All right.
What was that, Pump?
I'm excited.
Excited. I think we're all excited here a little bit.
Well, maybe not all of us. We'll see.
Let's see. So, what are some of your first memories of Faith No More? Like, when were you first introduced to this band?
So, I want to start with that. I do vaguely remember seeing a music video for "We Care a Lot," and I don't even think it was on like Headbangers Ball. I think what was the one they used to have for the where like U2 was and all the Sushi and the
Alternative Nation?
What's that?
Was that Alternative Nation?
Yeah.
Didn't that come later?
No, yeah, I think it came later.
I thought Alternative Nation came out after.
It may have come later, but I may have seen the video when it was already a year or two old then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do remember seeing "We Care a Lot," and I was like, "Oh, okay, interesting." Moved on past it. Epic. When Epic came out, that was kind of, gosh, what was that?
Alternative Nation was 92.
So when Epic came out, it was probably already a year old when MTV played it, and all of a sudden I was like, "Whoa, what is this? Who is this band out of nowhere?" It's interesting. It was crisp. It was
no pun intended.
Very low budget video, but very creative at the same time. Where I was like, "That's neat." They're using mirrors and fake backgrounds, and
you said "from out of nowhere."
Yeah, it really did. No, Epic.
No,
wrong song, dude. Wrong song.
But I'm just saying that, because that song is the one that hooked me. Like, made me a fan.
What?
Because I had heard Epic too. You had introduced me to Epic.
Yeah.
And then I think we were all like over at either your house or Taco's house or somebody's house, and we're all jamming to Faith No More. Somebody had The Real Thing. It was on a cassette. I remember that. And I know two songs we kind of expelled some energy. Just like run around was what was it? Epic, Falling to Pieces. I think Surprise You're Dead was in there.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, when I heard From Out of Nowhere, that was like a missile, like a rocket. And it was just like, I knew then, I was like, yeah, this is different, because they really did not sound like a lot of their contemporaries at that time. No, and I'm referring to the glam scene. They when you saw them, you're like, yeah, that's different, and I want to know more.
Yep.
And I loved their attitude of there are no rules, because it is the basically the philosophy of bands like The Damned that they followed over the years. It was like, music is no rules. You just don't take yourself so seriously and just make your art.
Yeah.
And I really felt, like, I'm sorry, I just totally dominated your entire like floor there, but I'll give it back. But I was just like, my first memories, because you said From Out of Nowhere, and that just like,
yeah. Well, and also when I saw the video for Epic, I mean, their guitarist Jim Martin at the time, he was wearing a shirt with Cliff Burton on it. And of course I was like in my hardcore Metallica mode during this period. And I'm like, hey, this band is throwing out some mad props and, in remembrance of Cliff Burton. So I was like, wow, that's some respect right there. Them going out and doing that.
Well, they I noticed too that they did that over the years too, because that's how Soundgarden got noticed by really MTV, them and Fear Factory.
Yeah.
Because the members of Faith No More would show up and do their concerts and wear their friends' bands T-shirts. And if you really think about it, like a lot of the local musicians, like different scenes, they do that.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
It's like they're advertising each
your
other.
friends, so they excel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I mean, if you're talking about introductions, it has to be, and the worst part is it is the MTV swirl, but it is pre me even moving to Bama, pre high school, seeing the glaring, flashing, the blue background or foreground light of the video for Epic. And I mean, nobody can dispense with the disturbing imagery of the fish flopping at the end. I mean, I can't think of how many times people just end up talking about that one particular component. But that I know I'm coming into this whole thing as the reserved factor on Faith No More, and
well, you were mentioning that video for Epic and how that was presented. Then on the follow up to that was Falling to Pieces, which is really just a bunch of mannequins and them throwing a bunch of paint around. Which
I don't remember. I don't remember the rest of their videos, to tell you the truth. For me, and part of that was probably checking out of MTV a little bit, but like for me, I think the real glory days of MTV was probably the 1980s with all the rando stuff that came out of that.
Yeah.
90s, you had spot moments of videos that were incredible. But for me, like Faith No More, for the real thing, that would be, I keep forgetting it when you do those things where you're talking about like, hey, I'll do, what are 10 albums that if you're stuck on a deserted island, what ones, and you want to focus on albums where you can listen to it all the way through and get a good solid. I do forget about this album, the real thing. I forget about it because it, in many ways, it's not. And I think this is part of my reservation coming into this whole thing was Faith No More to me is not one of those bands that I see as blowing up the headlines. They're not the peak of it. And so not to say that that's what I'm going to listen to, but they never pulled me in because they had certain songs that were good hits. For me, the whole album of The Real Thing is just incredible, and I need to remember to have that on my top 10 going on an island list. The problem is, who do I kick off? I don't know if it's George Harrison or one of the two Beatles albums I take, but I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Something for Faith No More. For me, it's always seemed like some sort of an evolution. Obviously, for anyone that goes through and listens to their albums, they're never content to stick to one sound. But I always found it interesting that they did not have some sort of predetermined identity. You go from the Chuck Mosley era, which was the We Care a Lot, and then Introduce Yourself, into the Mike Patton era. And you have a couple albums with Jim Martin, and then all of a sudden their sound changes again. And each one seemed to push back against what I think people were wanting them to do. It was just a complete, we're going to block you out. We're going to put our earplugs in. We're going to go make something and release it, and either you like it or you don't. And that's something that, I don't know, it's over the years that I've found it more and more endearing.
Well, it's kind of like I think particularly one of the musicians in that band that really carries that spirit, I think, is Mike Patton, with all his label and all the artists that he has under his label, like the Melvins.
Yep.
That's another band that's just like, we don't care. We're going to put out something, and if you're going to like it, great. If you don't like it, that's fine too. We're just going to be us. And I think one adjective that would describe Mike Patton would be fearless. I mean, absolutely fearless.
Yeah. That's it's definitely true.
I think the things you guys are both talking about is actually one of the things where I think it actually hurts them mainstream. And I mean,
Definitely.
conceptual, but that's the thing is conceptually being within maybe mainstream's the being cross platform palatable is probably a wordier way of saying what I'm trying to say, but being able to cross those genres, trying to attract audience, and not say that they haven't, they did, but being not necessarily artistic, because that's not even the word that I want, but having that, focusing on the artistic qualities of it versus the commercial components of it. I think I've talked about this before, that I'm going through listening to the Stones, and it almost feels like in the 80s they crossed their personal Rubicon of when they went from being not say that they weren't successful, they were very successful, but they went from being an artistic, like it was about the art that they were creating, and they flipped the page and became a commercial band in the 80s. And the tone changed, the message changed, the quality of the art changed. Even though, like, I'm never going to be a true Faith No More, like, over the top fan of them, one of the things that has come out of this is the depth of the lyrics, the meaning of the lyrics. One of the ones that got me, one of the songs that's on my list that is not on The Real Thing is A Small Victory. Like, I've always liked that song, and I sang along with it. But going through and prepping for this, I actually read the lyrics, and I looked into what was going on with it. And the hilarious part is the backstory on that, at least as I understand it, is in sports he was taught you have to win. And as an adult, he realized that it's not about the winning. It's not about the single game that you win. It's about the small victories that you can take away. But then people then don't have value in those small victories. And it's something that over the past couple of years, that's what I've been trying to focus on, is not focusing on this grand winning thing, because there's no way in hell I'm going to be a billionaire unless something amazing happens. It ain't happening. But to allow myself to identify of how to win personally, it has to be a small victory. And you have to take those small moments and win with it. And so listening to lyrics and then hearing what his story was for it, it makes sense. And that's just one of them. Like, digging into other songs, it's like, oh, well, this is what he's talking about on that, and this is what he's talking about on that. And so my respect for Faith No More has grown to the point where this stuff is now in the cycle. But it's never going to be something that, like, I go headlong and I just go, boom, I'm rolling through Faith No More, because of that artistic component. There is that constantly changing tone and musical quality and everything else.
And I find it pretty incredible how they were able to extrapolate music ideas out of some of the most bizarre scenarios. For example, the first time I heard off of Angel Dust, the song "Be Aggressive," which incorporates a high school cheerleader chant.
Yeah,
I was like, wow, how does that fit in? But it does. It fits in seamlessly.
But part of that problem with that song is it fits in with the song, and it makes that song,
Yeah.
But same time, if you're just kind of listening to it, all of a sudden you kind of just stop and go, "What?" Okay.
Yeah, my two favorites lyrically off of Angel Dust were Land of Sunshine, and the other was Kindergarten.
Kindergarten, definitely.
Because
I'm with you on that.
That'll really give you some introspective thinking there. So yeah, like that's kind of like what you were talking about earlier about like, that desert island thing. And this is where I would probably have to strangle the person even suggesting this to me. Like, oh, you can only take one album. I would have to like look at them and look deeply into their eyes and squeeze their throat and be like, this is how it's going to be. You're going to allow me to take The Real Thing and Angel Dust with me. Both of those records, because I think it's probably like their most creative period, and I think they made a lot of impact during that time with Jim Martin, and especially with Mike Patton being in the band.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, I think Angel Dust is the most commercial of their albums.
Well, I thought Angel Dust was dark and kind of schizophrenic, that whole record. So it kind of went from like that big, like they're trying to be the mainstream rock band, and then all of a sudden this dark.
It was not the follow-up that people were expecting.
Yeah.
Just like, just to use another band comparison, Queensryche.
Yep.
Empire, huge album for them.
Yeah.
And then what do they follow that up with?
Promised Land.
Yep. Dark.
Or even with Mind, Crime, and Empire.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
the one I was thinking of is what was that band? Extreme, where they put out, what was it, Pornography, and like everybody was like, oh, this is what they are, and I had heard a couple of their songs from prior to that, and I'm like, I like their older stuff. This stuff is like rocking hard, and this is like weird.
And then they freaked out when they heard the third album.
Yeah.
And then they're like, who is this? But Queensryche is a better example because you had an idea of what it was and then it changed. But that's the thing is, I think, so The Real Thing was more of a punk album, and Angel Dust was a more commercially viable album. I mean, between
commercially sounding perhaps, but material wise, definitely not what people thought they were going to follow it up with from The Real Thing.
But you think about it, it was 1993. The grunge scene was rolling. So they recorded that in like 92 probably.
Yeah.
The grunge scene had started rolling. Nirvana had already come out. You already had Pearl Jam and Soundgarden already out there. Soundgarden had been around for 10 years at that point, or 8 years at that point. So you had this different sound coming out, and it is one thing I will give Patton credit for is the creativity of creating a sound identifiable to them versus something that's somebody else's. And even though I think of it as I think it was commercially viable for that time, because one of the reasons I say that is the people that I remember listening to this is not so much people who I would say were true Faith No More fans and who carried it on. It was the people who were sitting on the fringes of the grunge thing, looking for the next band to jump on board with. And this happened to be that album. And so, and that may have been part of my discontent on it, but honestly, two of my favorite songs of theirs come off this album: A Small Victory and Midlife Crisis.
What about, how do you guys feel about, and I'll start with it. So Angel Dust was the end of the Jim Martin era. Basically, he confronted the band, or he said something that it was gay disco, and that's how he felt about it. So he left the band following that. When they get into King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime, all of a sudden you have a lot of lounge music, a little bit of some punk elements in it, and then even a little bit of reggae.
Salsa too.
salsa, yeah. I mean, it's all over the place. When I first heard it, I was all excited because I was like, "Hey, here comes the follow up to Angel Dust," and I'm getting something that completely unlike Angel Dust, which, you know, hindsight's 2020. I should have been expecting that, but I end up finding myself kind of, I don't know what to think about this, and it took a really long time for that album to kind of burn on me, and eventually it did click up. People talk now that it's one of their best albums. I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but it's probably their most fearless album, since you talked about Fearless earlier.
Well, I think that album is creative, but the one thing that I mean, and I know this is especially subjective, but
They're coming for you, D.
yeah, it might be
That or the cricket.
The album was creative. I think my big issue with it was the guitar tone. I did not like the guitar tone. That's not a disrespect to Dean Menta, the guitar player. I'm just saying that the tone itself, I don't know, going from Jim Martin to that was very jarring. I remember.
Yeah.
And like, man, this is gonna take some time to get used to, because I kind of knew that they were gonna kind of move on regardless. When I'd seen like, I saw a promotional video for one of the songs, and I saw they cut all their hair, you know, whatever, kind of looking like everybody else during that time. So I was just kind of like, okay, I guess this is where we're going. And I guess I was a little disappointed, but I'm still like not going to knock the album because it was still creative and I still think it's good. So
that was like somebody throwing a hot towel, and it just, what is this?
Yeah.
Because it was a very muted sound.
Yeah.
Tuned down. It was not as bright. Jim Martin had a very bright sound, a very crisp sound. It was out in the forefront. The way that he picks, the way that he played his guitar, and all of a sudden that was gone. It was like
I noticed also. I noticed also that the guitar tone then beefed back up again with the follow-up album of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could definitely tell, okay, well, they figure, well, we need to beat the guitar tone back up, because they got, what was his name? John Hudson, I believe, was replaced Dean Menta. And and he kind of was with him, I guess, to the end.
Yeah. So all the way through Sol Invictus,
yeah.
And actually, his playing style changed on Sol Invictus. I actually felt it was almost his attempt at trying to recreate Jim Martin's sound.
Yeah, that record was hard for me to get into, man. Oh, man. I'm still having issues with it.
And here, album of the year was the same thing for me. And then Sol Invictus was like, hey, this kind of brings me back to the heyday.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, so I don't have that burden or that preconceived history, because for me there was The Real Thing, and then really there was probably the people who annoyed me playing so much out of Angel Dust that honestly, the only album I had until I got a Greatest Hits, probably in the early 2000s, was The Real Thing. So to go back, like get all of the collection and then go back and listen to it and see the evolution, that really there were 3 periods. There were the first 2 albums, there were the middle 2 albums, and then there's what, three other after? Yeah. Is there 7 total? Something like that.
Last one being a very long delay between albums.
Yeah, but even with that, that's still the tonal quality of those final 2 to 3 were still very similar. And those first 2 were very similar. The middle 2 actually, I don't want to say they were very similar, because The Real Thing was very different than Angel Dust, but they were hitting different markets at different times. I mean, the Real Thing was hitting the pre-grunge. I mean, you think about it, like EMF's Unbelievable was out.
Yeah.
Those kind of songs were hitting the arrows, and so it was an album of that time, and probably it was, in retrospect, probably one of the better albums of that time because of what it was. You then, if anything, then looking back at Angel Dust, I personally think that Angel Dust was very much an album of its time. It was an album of that transition from grunge, the early days of grunge, which was very punkish, to turning into something that was more
sanitized.
Not even sanitized, just different. I mean, you started having it branch out. Soundgarden went one way, Stone Temple Pilots went one way, Nirvana broke up. You then had Pearl Jam going in a different direction. And out of that, you had these different genres, or not really genres, but just different kind of sounds to the same thing that we call alternative or grunge. And you then have Faith No More with their sound that's kind of mixed in there. And I think where you guys see it as kind of fading off or losing that edge is it really didn't fit into any category anymore. It fell back into the wayside of original alternative stuff that people weren't actively jumping on the bandwagon for. It wasn't mainstream metal. It wasn't mainstream pop. It wasn't like what was left of grunge. It wasn't part of new metal that was going to be coming out. It wasn't any of these kind of things. And so it fell into this weird hole. But the funny thing is, and so I came into this whole project, and this is going to be the funny part, probably, if anything. I came into this whole project kind of going, oh, what am I getting into? I hate you, Pump. I hate you. Like, all I wanted to do was listen to the songs that I liked. And what came out of this was an appreciation for the music as a whole. What came out of it was me ending up watching videos on people who are music coaches going through the catalog, not all the songs, but enough of the songs where they're just like, oh, look, listen to him do this. Okay, here's what's going on, and here's what he's doing with his voice, and here's what's happening, and listen to how the music changes at this point, and they're changing tempo, and I'm just like, I'm not musically inclined. I like music. I can't make it. I can sing like a seagull from freaking Little Mermaid. So I mean, you ain't getting that out of me. But to be able to see people who actually know what they're talking about and appreciate this stuff and how they appreciate it makes me now appreciate what I am listening to. And so that may be another part of the problem with Faith No More, as part of, having this collective of people who adore their music, but it not being enjoyed beyond that, because it takes work. It does take work. And I think a lot of people don't want to work when it comes to their music, and which might be a huge problem. And this is going to sound like the old man phrase, but that's the problem with music today. Well, yeah, the problem with music today is because the lyrics are, people spend 20 seconds writing the lyrics, and then they put some, beat machine music to the background on it. And, people don't spend time in the studio actually creating an album. Good albums shine. And
I refuse to go out like that.
Too late. We're old, man.
No,
we're old.
Negative. Speak for yourself, not me.
So you connecting the Real Thing to EMF has now all of a sudden sprung in my mind that the Real Thing somehow connects to Jesus Jones right here, right now. And I'm like, that they are part of the same time period and kind of the same sound.
Yeah, EMF. All right, that was the one I was trying to think of, was Jesus Jones. Jesus Jones, right here, right now. EMF's Unbelievable. Faith No More's Epic.
I'm hearing you.
They were all on the MTV cycle at the same time.
Yeah.
These videos were one right after another. But their sounds, if you actually listen to them, their sounds were I'm not going to say they were the same. They were similar. And so they very much were a band of their time. Like at that moment in time, they hit.
It was some
I'm
sort
hearing
of
you. I'm hearing you, but hey, at least he didn't ask you to research Deep Purple, okay? So I don't want to hear anything.
I'm never going to hear the end of that one.
Because that was a slog to get through, dude.
Yeah,
that was a
very because I didn't know them either. I was like, I'm going in this. You're going in it with me. I'm dragging you through it too.
I told him, I said, you're going to have to grant me an extension so that I can review this properly. Because that was some to get through.
No,
that's not what I'm saying.
My next one is going to be all of you have to listen to all of Yoko Ono's, and we got to figure out if there's actually anything good in there or if it is truly the land of swine. I was about to start a tangent, but I'm not going to.
Sorry, we're talking about Faith No More.
Because one of my huge complaints about music is a lot of the times we start listening to a band when they are rough and they're unrefined. The funny thing is, I actually think Faith No More is different. I think Faith No More, you want to listen to them when they are refined. Because those first two albums, there are moments, and sometimes it is a moment within a song and then it disappears.
Yep.
That you're like, they have something.
Yeah.
We Care a Lot. It is a fun song, but it's not necessarily good. And it received a lot of airplay because of being the intro for Dirty Jobs. But for them, actually hitting mid-stride was their optimal point. I would argue a band like Rolling Stones or even the Kinks, some of their early stuff is when they hit their stride, they came out gunning. Faith No More, I think they learned, and then boom. Soundgarden is another band. I think they hit their stride mid course of career, and that was their best output right in that time period.
Yeah.
But yes, as much grief as I gave you guys on doing this, on pulling through this, I'm not going to say you have a convert to be the first person at the show, but if I had tickets, I would definitely be up for going to see them live. Definitely.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was just thinking about this before we started recording here, and I was like, I was thinking about it because I was thinking about the material, like Faith No More, and I was like, that's like one of those bands that I regret never being able to see live.
Yeah. Because
I bet they're a lot of fun live. And I'm sure they're hilarious and like probably a little moody, and that's just how they are. And I just thought like, man, that'd be cool. Like if I would have gotten them along with some other bands like Typo Negative and The Damned, like I would have loved to see live. But yeah, they're on that short list of people that I would actually like, yeah, I'll fork out the money to go see them.
Yeah, because they're probably not going to go through the motion of giving everyone just the greatest hits and saying, all right, we're going to cash in for the night.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I did want to do a show about Faith No More, I know we've done the one about Soundgarden in the past, is much like Soundgarden, they're a very influential band on what came after.
Yep.
I mean, just look at the way nu metal ended up being. Look at the way. I mean, I don't even know where
Korn, the band Korn, cites Faith No More, specifically the album Angel Dust, as a direct influence on them. And they said if there was no Faith No More, there would be no Korn. Regardless of what you think of Korn, like Korn, hate Korn, whatever. I mean, you know what I mean?
What
like,
it does to your bowels. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's just, you know what I mean? That was like another, they said they're in a lot of ways, a lot of the skate kids like them, a lot of the punk rock kids like them, and a lot of the metal kids like them. So it's like they were kind of like Motorhead in the sense that they could like reach different cultures of people. And Faith No More was kind of like that. They brought a lot of genres kind of together.
Well, do you remember like in I never got into half of the bands back when I was actually skating, but like people always had their decks with like Fugazi and all these other bands, and probably in a way Faith No More became that. It became that for the generation that was just a little after us.
Yeah.
Where we were going around and people were, they had AC/DC on there, but like Fugazi. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that
Dead
Kennedys. Yeah. They'd have that. They'd have like the little, leather jacket with the patch on it, or they'd have it scrawled on their jeans and
Misfits,
maybe that's part of the thing is even though this hit mainstream, it became a legacy amongst the listeners as they, the people who actually can get in and make music and appreciate music for the core of what it is. They get into this and then realize these things that, it took other people to point out to me what it was that I'm listening to, like, instead of it just being easily palatable. And I go back to my statement that, a lot of people just want music to be easy. You listen to it and boom, it's done. And I don't think Faith No More is. Like, if you really want to enjoy them, you actually have to read the liner notes. You have to read if you can't, and actually I wouldn't even say just listen to the lyrics. You have to actually read the liner notes. You have to hear what it is, but then actually read what the words are, how they're put together, what the layers are with them. You have to then listen to Patton singing and like listen to how he's doing octave changes, how he's changing his voice to from one style of singing to another style of singing. I mean, you were talking about him learning languages. I mean, the voice coaches are nuts on how many different ways he will change how he sings in a song. Yeah. Like one song, and he will change just how he's singing. So those kind of things take work. It takes effort. And in many ways, even though I want to throttle both of you, thank you. Because you got me off my ass to actually explore something that I didn't take the time to explore. So... damn you!
Probably my favorite live performance was the infamous Saturday Night Live performance that Pump introduced me to.
I had it recorded.
Yeah, and we watched it many, many times over the years. And I thought, just that whole performance, I remember in my head as a kid thinking like, all of them look like, hey, we really don't know what to expect here, so we're just going to do it, and whatever happens just happens. And it just looked like musical freedom up there. And you could tell, like, when it was all over, like, people were cheering, but also you had those in the audience that were like, what did I just see? It was exciting,
So he was singing intentionally off key from what the song was on MTV. I mean, it was like he was trying to, I don't know, be as counterculture as he could for their biggest hit and undo it right there on live TV. So he was singing off key, staring up at the lights while he sang. Same thing that he did at the MTV Music Awards. Flopping on the stage like the fish just to continue to make people mad. And I remember they used to have on the music skits in the background, they used to have this big slowly spinning fan.
This big ass fan.
Yeah. And he went and climbed it and started like climbing through it and on it. And for those that followed SNL afterwards, they took the fan away because of what he was doing, just climbing around on the fan, getting out of the camera sight.
Yeah, and they were like, "Nope, we're not doing that anymore." Those kind of things. And the funny thing is with SNL, if you actually, there have been a bunch of bands who have just kind of boned in the SNL show, musically, and it's usually bands who have had that big hit where they're kind of derisive of the hit that got them there. And it then leads to, thank God it kind of ended with what was it, Ashley Simpson, where she completely was lip syncing the whole thing, and it was came out they truly was phoning it in. But that kind of performance would make sense for Faith No More from listening to the music and how it developed and everything else. You don't even have to tell me anything more about the characters in the band of who that kind of attitude or disposition towards the live portrayal of the music on a major stage like that doesn't surprise me at all, because it is about the art. And having it out in that kind of thing, it reminds me of Banksy, where Banksy had that huge thing. He's the graffiti artist, if you don't know who he is. He had that huge thing where he sold this huge piece of art to like this millionaire, billionaire, and the second it was purchased, it disappeared. There was nothing for the person,
like dissolving or something like that.
Yeah. I forget how they did it, because I can't say he, because everybody assumes Banksy's a guy, but there's been some question that actually Banksy is a woman. But either way, like the way that kind of artistic mentality towards the component of it, and I mean, Mike Patton clearly is not bound by what's digestible. He doesn't care.
It's definitely not about permanence. It's more about the moment. And even some of his lyrics that he's confessed before that he'll pick words for a song based upon how they fit in with the song and the sound, not necessarily if they're going to lyrically contribute. And that's art. That's all of a sudden using a different brush or a different color that doesn't go in with everything else, just because to you it makes it fit.
So one of the things that the voice coaches put, and I watched two of them that were going through his videos or through the music, but one of the things that both of them picked up on was, and they don't do it every song, but at least early stuff, no. Later stuff, yeah, it's more in line with this. His word choice cadence is to the notes of the song. So as the musicians are playing a note, he is playing a note orally. And so the notes line up. And if you actually go listen to like Angel Dust and Afterwards, you can see it. There are a bunch of songs in there where it's just like, boop, 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 boop. Here's the note, here's him, here's the beat of the note, and he breaks the words up so that they match with the beat in the song. That was some of the fun stuff of paying attention to of the music.
I think Faith, particularly Mike Patton, he's very underrated, and I feel like it's like what we were talking about, like his voice will change like on a dime in the middle of a song. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, which Mike Patton are we going to get today? If he were a fighter, he'd be very difficult to train for, because you don't know who you're going to get.
Yeah.
And I think plus with his skill and his talent, I think that's what makes him dangerous on the microphone.
I don't think, I don't think some of the other members get their fair share, but I mean, Gould on bass, if there is one defining sound of Faith No More. I think Billy Gould is going to be.
Yeah, I agree. I like Billy Gould too.
Yeah.
They're one of the things that I focus on for music personally, like outside of like if I'm trying to scope the whole thing, but for me has always been the bass guitar.
Yeah.
Like how is it being used? And I try to train my ear, and I'm still not anywhere near good at all at it, but trying to differentiate out the bass from everything else. And I will say, like, the most easily identifiable song with how good the bass is "We Care a Lot." But you then, because I mean, it's right up in your face, it's punching you in the skull. But then you take other songs and their bass lines are so solid.
Yeah. Even I mean, the Chuck Mosley era. Chuck Mosley is definitely not somebody I want to go listening to, but off of Introduce Yourself, Chinese Arithmetic, the bass line on that makes the song. I hear that, I want to listen to that song.
I always liked Ann's song off of Introduce Yourself because it's such a weird story. Yeah, just an odd story of like people hanging out. But I want to remind everybody, if you have any memories or any of your favorite songs, albums, or whatever, let us know in the comment section of this video whenever it is uploaded to YouTube, or let us know on our social medias. We have a playlist that we have made, which features all of our picks, kind of like what we did for the Soundgarden episode. We will also be posting that in the comment section on YouTube and on the Facebook page. antwackystudios.bsky.social.
I'm glad you remember that because I don't.
Contact us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Bluesky, at Antwacky Studios.
If you would like to contribute to our beer fund, you can be. We'll set up. Yeah, mine's working on it. We'll work on getting a subscriber set on.